president's foreign policy, in my opinion, is formed in part by a perception he has that his magnetism and his charm and his persuasiveness is so compelling that he can sit down with people like Putin and Chavez and Ahmadinejad, and that they'll find we're such wonderful people that they'll go along with us, and that they'll stop doing bad things. And it's an extraordinarily naive perception, and it has led to huge errors in North Korea, in Iraq, obviously in Iran, in Egypt, around the world. My own view is that the centerpiece of American foreign policy has to be strength. Everything I do will be calculated to increasing America's strength. When you stand by your allies, you increase your strength. When you attack your allies, you become weaker. When you stand by your principles, you get stronger. When you have a big military that's bigger than anyone else's, you're strong. When you have a strong economy, you build American strength. For me, everything is about strength. And communicating to people what is and is not acceptable. It's speaking softly but carrying a very, very, very big stick. And this president instead speaks loudly and carries a tiny stick. And that is, that's not the right course for a foreign policy. I saw Dr. Kissinger in New York. You're not eating. I'm mesmerized. Yeah. He's more than tears. Come on. I saw Dr. Kissinger. I said to him, how are we perceived around the world? And he said, one word, weak. We are weak. And that's how this president is perceived. By our friends and unfortunately, by our foes. And it's no wonder that people like Kim Jong-un, the new leader of North Korea, announces a long-range missile test only a week after he said he wouldn't. Because it's like, what's this president going to do about it? If you can't act, why don't threaten? Please.
Just to follow on the Iraq.
I'm going to taste this, by the way. Yes. I just want to show you how it's done. You take this in your fork. Put it in. Yeah. I'm good. Please, go ahead.
When Carter was president, you had hostages. Ronald Reagan was able to make a statement even before he was actually sworn in.
Yeah.
The hostages were released.
On the day of his inauguration.
Right.
Yeah.
So my question is really, how can we sort of duplicate that scenario?
Oh.
This time?
I'm going to ask you, how do I duplicate that scenario?
I think it had to do with the fact that the Iranians perceived Reagan would do something to really get them out.
Yeah.
In other words, that he would have the strength, and that's why I'm following on what you said about strength.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm suggesting that something that you say over the next few months gets the Iranians to understand that their pursuit of a bomb is something that you would predict. And I think that that's something that could possibly resonate very well with the American public and others.
I appreciate the idea. I can't. One of the things that's frustrating to me is that in a typical day like this, when I do 3 or 4 events like this, the number of foreign policy questions I get are between 0 and 1. And the American people are not concentrated at all upon China, on Russia, Iran, Iraq. This president's failure to put in place a status of forces agreement allowing 10,000 to 20,000 troops to stay in Iraq, unthinkable. And yet, in that election, in the Jimmy Carter election, the fact that we had hostages in Iran, I mean, that was all we talked about. And we had the 2 helicopters crash in the desert. I mean, that was the focus. And so him solving that made all the difference in the world. I'm afraid today, if you said we got Iran to agree to stand down and use their weapon, they go, hold on. It's really, but by the way, if something of that nature presents itself, I will work to find a way to take advantage of the opportunity. Please. Yes.
But that's your lucky night. More foreign policy.
Yes. You're married.
We did, actually, the first time you were in Jerusalem. And we appreciate you being there. How do you think that the Palestinian problem can be solved, and what are you going to do about it?
I'm torn by 2 perspectives in this regard. One is the one which I've had for some time, which is that the Palestinians have no interest whatsoever in establishing peace, and that the pathway to peace is almost unthinkable to accomplish. Now, why do I say that? Some might say, well, just let the Palestinians have the West Bank and have security and set up a separate nation for the Palestinians. And then come a couple of thorny questions. And I don't have a map here to look at the geography, but the border between Israel and the West Bank is obviously right there, right next to Tel Aviv, which is the financial capital, the industrial capital of Israel, the center of Israel. It's what the border would be, maybe 7 miles from Tel Aviv to what would be the West Bank. 9 miles. Okay, I came close. 9 miles. The challenge is the other side of the West Bank.
Don't go head to head.
Yeah. The other side of the West Bank. The other side of what would be this new Palestinian state would either be Syria at one point or Jordan. And of course the Iranians would want to do through the West Bank exactly what they did through Lebanon, what they did in Gaza, which is the Iranians would want to bring missiles and armament into the West Bank and potentially threaten Israel. So Israel, of course, would have to say, that can't happen. We've got to keep the Iranians from bringing weaponry into the West Bank. Well, that means that who? The Israelis are going to patrol the border between Jordan, Syria, and this new Palestinian nation? Well, the Palestinians would say, no way. We're an independent country. You can't guard our border with other Arab nations. And then how about the import? How about flying into this Palestinian nation? Are we going to allow military aircraft to come in? And weaponry to come in? And if not, who's going to keep it from coming in? Well, the Israelis. Well, the Palestinians are going to say, we're not an independent nation if Israel is able to come in and tell us what can land at our airport. These are problems that are very hard to solve, all right? And I look at the Palestinians not wanting to see peace anyway, for political purposes, committed to the destruction and elimination of Israel, and these thorny issues, and I say, there's just no way. And so what you do is you say you move things along in the best way you can, you hope for some degree of stability, but you recognize this is going to remain an unsolved problem. I mean, we live with that in China and Taiwan. All right, we have a potentially volatile situation, but we sort of live with it. And we kick the ball down the field and hope that ultimately somehow something will happen and resolve it. We don't go to war to try and resolve it imminently. On the other hand, I got a call from a former Secretary of State. I won't mention which one it was, but this individual said to me, I think there's a prospect for a settlement between the Palestinians and the Israelis after the Palestinian elections. I said, really? And his answer was yes. I think there's some prospect, and I didn't delve into it, but I always keep open. I mean, I don't always keep open the idea, but I have to tell you, the idea of pushing on the Israelis to give something up, to get the Palestinians to act, is the worst idea in the world. We have done that time and time and time again. It does not work. So the only answer is show strength again, American strength, American resolve. And if the Palestinians someday reach a point where they want peace, more than we're trying to force peace on them, then it's worth having the discussions. But till then, it's just wishful thinking. Please.
You guys sit down.
I mean, don't you notice?
Afterwards?
Please, don't keep going.
Advocate like 12 miles for that slot.
Individuals in this room obviously are your supporters. I am very concerned about the average American who doesn't know you. There is a terrible misconception, and I spent numerous hours trying to, I hate being a defender when you are such a deserving individual. Years and years ago, I called George Bush Sr., and he had helped me in my campaign in Massachusetts when I ran for Senate. I told him that there is a guy named Clinton who's going to beat him